Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News at 5 starts now.
Here we go again. The feds on the move in Macomb. 2 more politicians busted in an ongoing corruption probe.
The Hillary Clinton emails investigation is back in the headlines, but this time it's the investigators who are feeling the heat.
And the federal government making some serious accusations against Fiat Chrysler tonight, claiming the automaker used technology to skirt environmental standards.
We start tonight with breaking news from Madison Heights, where there were 4 water main breaks this afternoon.
The areas of 12 Mile and Stevenson, Shirley, Groveland, south of 11 Mile, and East Harwood are all affected. Madison Heights residents should expect low water pressure and potentially discolored water until the breaks are fixed. Now, you see their crews are out working on the breaks right now. Anybody with questions or concerns should call Madison Heights Police.
Other news tonight, the feds strike again. This time, 2 Village of New Haven council members have been busted for, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office, accepting bribes.
And this is all part of that ongoing investigation into the corruption probe into politics in Macomb County. Let's get right to our Mara McDonald live. She's in New Haven tonight. Mara.
Good evening to you, Kimberly. And this time around, it's different. You had an FBI agent going undercover and offering bribes. Bribes, the FBI says, 2 township trustees here, Christopher Craigmiles and Brett Harris, took. Let me take you through it. Per the complaint charging these village trustees, this is how it all went down. Christopher Craigmiles and Brett Harris were 2 sitting village council members in 2016. They were introduced to an FBI agent masquerading as a consultant. And here's where it ties into the other arrests made in Macomb. That undercover FBI agent was introduced to the 2 men by Clinton Township trustee Dean Reynolds, who had no idea he was a Fed. You'll remember that Reynolds was the first domino to fall in this federal corruption probe of politicians in Macomb County. The bribes the village council members were offered, according to the undercover FBI agent, totaled $16,000. Village President Christopher Dilbert Jr. tells me on a scale of 1 to 10 when he got this news today.
Definitely a 10. It's very unfortunate that this is the kind of attention that we here in New Haven are receiving.
Dilbert has heard nothing from Craigmiles, who is still on the council. Harris is no longer on the village council, and he hasn't heard from him either.
I've known them both for a while. I've known Mr. Harris all his life. We grew up together across the street. So I've known him, forever.
Back here alive, you will recall in the rest of these arrests that the feds have made that they all tie back to Rizzo Environmental Services in Macomb for municipal garbage contracts. That's not the case in this one. It would appear this probe is widening out. I called Rizzo for comment tonight. Rizzo has been bought by a company called GFL, and this is what a statement that I got just moments ago. No past or present employee of GFL Environmental USA is referred to in the charging documents, and none were involved in the alleged incidents. GFL Environmental USA continues to cooperate with law enforcement officials in their investigations. So, Kimberly, Devin, what this really shows us at this hour is that the feds are moving on and moving out and seeing what else is out there. Back to you.
Now, Mara, I want to go back to something you said in your piece. Harris, he's no longer on the council, but Craigmiles is. Will he continue to serve while he is under these federal charges?
You know, nobody, I think they have been caught so flat-footed here, Kimberly. They don't even know. I mean, when I was speaking to Mr. Dilbert, I asked him that. I said, well, what happens now? He says, quite frankly, we don't know. We need to talk to our in-house counsel, figure out what happens here. I mean, can we force him to resign? Do we keep him? They don't really know. And they also add that they never had any FBI agents coming in here. There were no raids. There was no paper that was given. So they had no clue this was coming. Back to you.
Unbelievable. Well, one thing is for sure, this thing is spreading like a wildfire. Mara, we appreciate it.
Fiat Chrysler is in trouble with the EPA tonight. The company is fighting back hard, though, against this notion, a case that appears similar to the VW emissions scandal. But is it? Business Center Rod Maloney live tonight at the North American International Auto Show with more. Rod.
Yeah, Devin, it's trucks like this with a Cummins turbo diesel engine that the EPA says Fiat Chrysler has not been forthcoming about their emissions record. Sergio Marchionne, a guy not given to getting too angry, was furious today about the whole situation, saying that he feels in many ways his company is being unfairly targeted. The EPA announced more than 100,000 2014 to 16 Jeep Grand Cherokee diesels. And the same year Dodge Ram diesel pickups are a problem for FCA, quote, for installing and failing to disclose engine management software. The undisclosed software results in increased emissions of nitrogen oxides from the vehicles, end quote. Assistant EPA Administrator Cynthia Giles said in a statement, quote, failing to disclose software that affects emissions in a vehicle's engine is a serious violation of the law, which can result in harmful pollution in the air we breathe. FCA CEO Sergio Marchionne quickly rushed to a conference call to deny the charges.
This is absolute nonsense. Anybody who draws a parallel between us and VW on this basis is smoking illegal material.
Marchionne hinted this all could be political as the Obama administration enters its waning days.
You don't belong to a class of criminals. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I think we're trying to do an honest job here. And I'm, like, those of you who know me well enough realize that I'm neither looking for pity nor compassion. But the reality is that we're not trying to break the bloody law.
Auto trader analyst Michelle Krebs notes that Marchionne's found trouble for previously reporting inflated sales numbers.
It is not clear that this is anything like the Volkswagen situation, but I will say the Volkswagen situation definitely has caused regulators to scrutinize automakers much more closely regarding diesels.
Now, the big concern for a guy like Marchionne is the loss of sales of vehicles like this that they make big money on, because it's a situation where he has about $5 billion in debt he's got to buy down. He's counting on vehicles like this to do it. Not being able to sell diesels, which he says is going to happen as a result of this, is a problem. You can best bet he'll be talking to the new Trump administration to see what they can work out. Back to you.
All right, Rod. We were talking yesterday about how we've had a little bit of everything, and now we're going into our next little cycle.
It's like a roller coaster we've been saying. Let's check in with Ben.
Here we go. We're in the right around freezing right now, but we've still got farther to fall as we get into the lows tonight. In fact, we pushed those 50s that we saw last night out here towards the Appalachians. It's almost 70 degrees in the nation's capital right now. Easy to see where the differences are. About 20 degrees warmer on the East Coast. 10 to as much as almost 40 degrees colder here in the middle part of the country, but there is some warmer air here, and that is headed our way for the weekend. So even though we're getting colder temporarily, no shortage of interest here in the 7-day forecast as we go right back up that roller coaster, but not until after tonight. Into the 20s, we'll look at that and what the weekend holds in your 7-day forecast coming up in a few minutes. Guys?
Okay, Ben, thank you. Another packed day on Capitol Hill as more of Donald Trump's cabinet nominees faced grilling and confirmation hearings. And we've learned there will be a new investigation into the FBI and Justice Department's handling of the Hillary Clinton email probe. Steve Handelsman is standing by with the latest.
Thanks. Good evening. Justice Department policy, especially in the closing days of any election, is to do nothing that would help or hurt any candidate. Now the department will investigate why the FBI director might have violated that. Democrats have been charging that FBI Director James Comey might have cost Hillary Clinton the election, giving the win to Donald Trump by ending the investigation of Clinton's emails with an unprecedented public condemnation.
They were extremely careless.
Then revealing the investigation was reopening 2 weeks before Election Day. Democrats applaud the Justice Department probing Comey.
He was afraid that an FBI office in New York would leak the information if he didn't say it publicly. Now, what does that say about the FBI?
Meanwhile, Donald Trump's team,
you are fake news,
is still asking accusing questions of the CIA and sister agencies.
Why intelligence officials or other people are leaking to the media.
Even though Director of National Intelligence James Clapper called Trump to deny his people leaked the unverified report that Vladimir Putin might have something on Trump. Mike Pompeo, nominated to head the Trump CIA, testified today he will focus on Russia.
Senator, I do. Indeed, I would expect that the president-elect would demand that of me.
And Trump Defense Secretary nominee James Mattis testified working with Russia is less likely.
There's a decreasing number of areas where we can engage cooperatively and an increasing number of areas where we're going to have to confront Russia.
Mattis throwing cold water on Donald Trump's boast that he can work with Putin.
The
President-elect today tapped Rudy Giuliani, who runs a security firm, to advise him on fighting hacking, including Russian hacking, that coincidentally today, FBI Director James Comey came up here to the Hill to brief Congress on. From Washington, Steve Handelsman, Local 4.
All right, Steve. The Lions season, of course, is over, but only on the field. General Manager Bob Quinn going into his second year of trying to build a winner in Detroit and gave reporters a chance to pick his brain a bit today.
And Bernie's here to break it all down. What did he say? When are we going to win in the playoffs? Did you ask him?
No. But when Bob Quinn speaks, no. But when Bob Quinn speaks, everyone listens. And that was the case today in Allen Park as Quinn held his end of the season meeting with reporters. We've got highlights of head coach Jim Caldwell, who Quinn said would be back for his 4th season next year. But is it the 4th season on his current deal, or did he get an extension? Quinn wouldn't say. But he did have nice things to say about his head coach.
I really believe in his approach of managing the team, how he practices the team, how he maintains the health of the team. So, listen, winning 9 games is good. It's not good enough, but, you know, I felt really comfortable with the way things went this year. I'm looking forward to 2017 with Jim.
All right. Well, Quinn was also asked about Matthew Stafford, who has 1 year to go on his current deal. Quinn says he keeps all talk about contracts private, so he wouldn't say if Stafford will get a new deal.
And I guess suggested that he had decided Caldwell was coming back before they made the playoffs.
Yeah. Before the playoffs, yeah. But someone I thought was going to ask him about Russian hacking, but he didn't.
Didn't come up?
No, it didn't come up. No.
All right.
Thanks, Bernie. Still ahead, a recall of baby powder by a company that's already faced its share of criticism over unsafe products.
We'll have that and this, Sean.
A local pastor, his church is for sale, and he's working to try to save it. At the same time, he's got a flight to catch. He's headed to the inauguration in Washington.
Maybe I'll meet some people there, have some conversations that could possibly help us.
What this pastor wants to do while he's at the presidential gala.
An internal Detroit police memo with surprising findings on race within the department. We'll explain and tell you why the chief isn't buying it.
She broke. New at 6.
What would you do if you saw something like this pointed out of a car window? Well, police in Grosse Pointe Woods are looking for 4 teens accused of pointing something like this at kids. We've got the story coming up.
All right, Priya, also at 6, a new discovery involving depression and pregnancy. What's to blame and how moms-to-be can fight back.
An internal Detroit Police Department report obtained by Local 4 finds a growing racial problem within the department. It all comes after one officer went on social media and called the city, quote, garbage. Let's bring in Jason Colthorpe from DPD headquarters today. And Jason, what's the status of that officer? Do we know?
He's gone, Kim. This is his resignation letter right here, dated yesterday. However, had he not resigned, Chief James Craig was already taking steps to fire him. Chief Craig also saying today there is no race problem here at Detroit Police. In February, Chief James Craig started the Committee on Race and Equality to examine perceived inequality in the department. In August, the committee submitted an 8-page report finding, in part, numerous incidents which involved command staff in discriminatory practices, enough to conclude that the department has a growing racial problem.
To make statements that this report suggests that there's widespread racism in the department, that is not the case.
Chief Craig found the findings baseless.
Most of what they learned was based on perception. He found nothing of substance. Again, most of it was rumors, innuendos, and again, it was not an investigation.
The report also states racism that exists in the department trickles from the command officers to the rank and file. Enter now former officer Daniel Wolf, who in the comments of a recent Motor City Muckraker article made racist statements and called the city garbage. DPD immediately investigated, saying he does not reflect the department as a whole.
That doesn't mean that there might not be others that harbor this attitude. And when we find out, we will address it accordingly.
Yesterday, Wolf, who did not cooperate, resigned before he could be fired. Today, Craig reiterated his department, at 63% black, reflects the city, which is 83% black, and it exceeds the national average of women on the force and in the upper ranks. That core committee, by the way, not only will continue Next year, it will have 47 more members added to that, which will also include some civilians. Live downtown tonight, Jason Colthorpe, Local 4.
Jason, let's go back to former Officer Wolf for just a moment. He made some other disturbing claims of physical abuse on the job. Could he be charged with any of that?
Yeah, he admitted blatantly to abusing suspects, some children, with handcuffs, saying, using his words, hitting them upside the head. But police say without an actual complaint or proof of that, and now that he's resigned, there's little to no chance he could be charged with those.
Yeah.
Kim?
Okay. Jason, we appreciate it.
Now to a Help Me Hank recall alert. The Honest Company was co-founded by actress Jessica Alba, by the way, now recalling all bottles of its organic baby powder here in the U.S. In a video posted to the company's website, the Honest Company's co-founder says recent tests found possible contamination and microorganisms in the baby powder. There are concerns that using the powder could lead to eye or skin infections. Consumers can return their bottles for a full refund.
Well, we have kind of been, I would say, relatively mild for the first 2 weeks.
There you go. Yep.
It's just that we've kind of been all over the place, right?
Yes. In the TV business, we call this jipping, joining in progress. We're just sort of resuming winter right in the middle of it. But yeah, it's going to feel every bit of it tonight as temperatures go back to where they should be for the overnight lows. Right now, we are sitting in the 30s, just barely above freezing. At least in Detroit, but with that northwest wind at 14, our wind chill outside 23 degrees, and we will see wind chills in the teens for most of tomorrow. We'll get there in a second, but want to step back and show you what happened this morning. We just got soaked. Most of this was rain. There was some freezing rain and a little bit of snow that rolled through this morning, and after the morning commute, that finally dried out as it exited. It left us with a good amount of rain. In fact, when you look back over the last 3 days, total of 72 hours, everything that's shaded in green here has picked up more than a ½ inch of liquid. And there are some spots, especially here in Oakland and Macomb County, where we've got 1 to 1.5 inches of total precipitation. And a lot of that water is still hanging around in some spots tonight. So as temperatures go down into the 20s and even teens for overnight lows, there could be a lot of ice around on sidewalks, side streets as we head out to work in the morning. High pressure is going to settle in. That's going to take care of some of the clouds overnight and give us at least some sunshine in the morning, but those clouds do come back as we get through the day on Friday. Not going to lead to anything as far as precipitation goes. We do have a dry stretch going into the weekend. Next system is down here to the south. It's going to be a mess for parts of Missouri and out in the Plain States, Kansas, Oklahoma. And eventually that moisture will make its way here late Monday and into Tuesday, mostly in the form of rain as temperatures go back to the 40s as we get into next week. But let's look at low temperatures tonight. There will be some 20s out there. City of Detroit right at 20, maybe 21 down there in downriver. But there will be a lot of teens. 18 for the overnight low in Troy. South Zone out in parts of Lenawee County could see some teens, but generally one of our warmer locations with low 20s expected for lows. West Zone anywhere between 14 in Flint and 19 in Canton. And in our North Zone, it's all teens here for morning lows, anywhere between 13 in Sandusky and 17 here in St. Clair, Macomb, and Rochester Hills by tomorrow. High temperatures not getting out of the 20s tomorrow. 26 is as good as we can do with a wind chill of 10 to 15 during the day. Then it's on our way up. 32 Saturday, 34 on Sunday, and high temperatures from Monday through next weekend. Every single day will be in the 40s.
We return you to this winter already in progress. Yeah, I like your thought on that. Yeah, hi, Ben.
Thanks, Ben. Still ahead, Michigan Secretary of State like you've never seen or heard her before. Find out why she's attempting to rap with a kangaroo.
Wow. Also, the fire that couldn't have been any closer to home for some of California's bravest. That's next. In Southern California today, firefighters are working to put out the flames at their own fire station. This morning, an explosion in the station's apparatus bay woke up the firefighters. The apparatus bay is where the fire trucks are parked. The flames quickly spread from that area into the living quarters and then right through the roof. We're still uncertain of how many firefighters were in the station at the time.
In the NFL, the San Diego Chargers are moving to Los Angeles. The team's owner released an open letter on Twitter announcing his decision. The move comes after the organization and the city were unable to reach a deal for a new stadium. They will share a stadium with the LA Rams in Inglewood when that stadium is completed. And some Chargers fans, meanwhile, were not too happy with the decision. One man took video of himself hurling eggs at the team's headquarters. Police were called shortly afterward to provide extra security at the facility.
The city of Baltimore and the U.S. Department of Justice have agreed to terms on police reform. Attorney General Loretta Lynch says the new reforms meet the three main goals set out during their negotiations.
First, to assure effective and constitutional policing. Second, to restore the community's trust in law enforcement. And finally, to advance public and officer safety.
The new reforms include community oversight, new recruitment and training policies, and video recording during prisoner transports. The agreement was filed in court this afternoon. It now awaits approval from a federal judge.
New at 5:30.
Exclusive video of a violent traffic stop. Now police are getting training that can help keep them and motorists safe. This church in East Point, it's for sale. There's no heat inside, and the pastor is currently trying to save it. At the same time, he's got a flight to catch. He's been invited to the inauguration.
Well, my attitude is like, let's give the man a chance. There are 50,000 people in Detroit that did not get out and vote.
Next on Local 4, I'll introduce you to this pastor, what he has to say, why he's going to the inauguration, and what he wants to do when he's there.
And a federal raid, a joint task force raid between many cities, Border Patrol and Homeland Security, to try to shut the Victory Inn down in Dearborn and Detroit because of drugs, prostitution, and more.
It's dinner time. Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News at 5:30 starts now.
Drugs, prostitution, and human trafficking. Investigators say it was all going on at the Detroit hotel they raided today.
Topping our news at 5:30. For some, the sight of heavily armored officers breaking down doors at the Victory Inn really came as no surprise.
5 different law enforcement agencies swarming the hotel this morning on Detroit's west side. Nick Monticelli shows us why.
Well, to be honest with you, most of, not all of the people here were not surprised by the raid this morning at all. They say they see the prostitution, they see the drugs, they see the human trafficking. In fact, the city of Detroit went so far as to file a nuisance abatement to shut this motel down permanently.
Well, they do prostitution over there, so that's an everyday thing over there. You see it every day. They walking up and down the street. They hopping from truck to truck, car to car.
A security guard who works at an adult education center across from the Victory Inn Motel is not surprised at all to see a large raid today. In fact, he was expecting it, and he's not the only one.
I get here like around 5 o'clock in the morning. I see people coming out of there like in skimpy clothes and stuff, and I just be like, whoa, what the hell's going on?
The raid started at 6 a.m. with officers from Homeland Security, Border Patrol, Detroit, Dearborn, and Taylor. Their focus was drugs, prostitution, and human trafficking. Homeland Security took the lead, though, because they have a human trafficking task force. Detroit police asked them to, saying the Victory Inn has been a long-term problem for Detroit and Dearborn, with 2 shootings, numerous aggravated assaults, robberies, and 2 murders just in 2016. DPD also says it is known for drugs and human trafficking. The security guard has even seen a prostitute being beaten by her boss.
He was whooping her butt. He was hitting her head up against the wall. He was hitting her like she was a dude. And I don't like that. So I'm not finna see it and let it happen. So I made on over there and told him he had to stop.
And now they and others are happy something has been done.
You got kids and stuff around here. They don't need to see this all the time. It's enough stuff going on around here that we don't need to see.
In Detroit, Nick Monticelli, Local 4.
Vice President Joe Biden was honored at the White House today as President Obama surprised him with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, calling him as good a man as God ever created. An emotional Biden accepted the medal this afternoon. During his acceptance speech, the vice president fought back tears as he talked about his relationship with President Obama.
I've never known a president, and few people I've ever met my whole life, I can count on less than one hand, who've had the integrity and the decency and the sense of other people's needs like you do.
President Obama said Vice President Biden deserved the medal because of his love for and lifetime service to the country.
Just a little more than 7 days now from Donald Trump's presidential inauguration, and a local pastor just found out he's going to be there. Sean Lay reports from East Point on the reason for the surprise invite. Sean?
Breath of Life Christian Church right here on 8 Mile in East Point. No heat inside. It's cold and it's for sale. The city is selling the church. The pastor trying to save his church. At the same time, he got a call to Washington to go to the inauguration.
I am just a guy from the east side of Detroit.
Just a guy from Detroit, but Pastor Frank Collins Jr. has been on quite a life's journey. He was the youngest person in Michigan to become a master plumber. As a child, he watched police pull a gun on his father in the Deep South. And now he's the pastor of Breath of Life Christian Church on 8 Mile in East Point.
And we sincerely believe that God has placed us here to sew up the divide and to put salve on it and to bring healing.
But there's no heat in the building. The city of East Point is selling the building they leased to the church.
We have a lot going on. But we have faith in God.
While he's raising money to save his church, he got a call this week. Pastor Collins is invited to the inauguration of Donald Trump and will be attending the presidential gala ball. As an independent, he says Trump was his choice. As a pastor, he says he forgives some of the things Mr. Trump has said.
Just think, if everybody forgave everybody, what kind of nation would this be? It would be awesome.
The invitation coming as a surprise.
And my views are not conservative. My views are my parents' views.
The pastor says he's been praying for God to expand his borders. Now he wonders who he will meet in Washington.
Because we got a building here we're trying to save, and any kind of support with that, I would love to have.
So let's connect some dots here. You've got a pastor from East Point trying to save his church, invited to the inauguration. You've got Dick DeVos, the billionaire owner of the Orlando Magic, his wife Betsy, the pick for education secretary. It's Dick DeVos who is paying the pastor's way to Washington and to his hotel. Devin, the pastor believes it was his appearances during the campaign speaking in favor of Donald Trump on a Christian broadcasting system. Back to you.
Well, is the pastor going with anyone else from the area?
He's going by himself. He's going to meet up with 6 other pastors, he says, all from Metro Detroit, all in favor of Donald Trump. He doesn't know them. He'll meet with them and then see them at the inaugural ball.
Yeah. All right, Sean.
Well, the reward has been up to $11,000 in connection with a shooting at GameStop on Christmas Eve. The shooting happened around 7:30 at the GameStop at 8 Mile and Gratiot. That's where police say 2 armed suspects shot one of the workers before running into the store and stealing multiple PS4s. At this time, both suspects are still on the loose. If you have any information, call Detroit Police.
It was a record year for the TSA. More people were caught armed with guns while traveling through airports across the country. TSA says it confiscated more than 3,300 guns last year. That's up 28% from the year before. Most of the guns confiscated, about 83% of them, were loaded at the time. The weapons were discovered at more than 200 airports across the U.S. The most, 198 guns, were found at Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson International Field last year. A cocaine bust at the Ambassador Bridge leads to the arrest of a Canadian man. The Canadian Border Services Agency said border officers stopped a truck driver hauling fruit in a trailer back on December 27th. Officers decided to perform a secondary search of the trailer, not once but twice, and that's when they discovered 30 bricks of what they believe was cocaine concealed in the trailer. The drivers from Mississauga arrested, charged with importation of cocaine and possession for the purpose of trafficking. Big news today about the EpiPen, the injector that treats allergic reactions in potentially life-threatening situations. A number of price hikes as of late had customers up in arms, but a drugstore giant, CVS, is changing the equation for millions of Americans, as Tom Costello explains.
Good afternoon. You'll probably recall that the EpiPen has been the subject of a lot of controversy over the past few months, with prices going from $100 for a 2-pack up to about $600. Under great consternation, the company cut the prices for generic versions, and now it's got new competition. CVS Pharmacy coming in and announcing they will offer a generic form for just $110 for 2-pack, going from $600 down to $110 for a 2-pack with a competing brand. So the question tonight, is it just as good as the original, and is this the kind of cost savings, really a lifesaver, that so many families were hoping for? That story is coming up on NBC Nightly News.
All right, Tom, more on the story of this and the impact of Donald Trump's recent attacks on drug makers, on pharma. He talked about that yesterday on price hikes. That's coming up on Nightly News as well.
Help in easing chronic pain, but potentially upping the risk of severe mental illness. Those are some of the trade-offs from marijuana use, according to a comprehensive new report released just this afternoon.
For marijuana's supporters and detractors, today's report offers a split decision.
It doesn't come down strongly for one opinion or another. Like a lot of science, it's very nuanced.
A team of experts appointed by the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering and Medicine reviewed all research on marijuana published since 1999 that led to nearly 100 conclusions. Among them, that cannabis is effective for the treatment of chronic pain in adults, muscle stiffness and spasms in multiple sclerosis patients, and in easing nausea from chemotherapy.
For people that have one of those conditions that it's likely to be helpful for, I think they can be very hopeful.
But the review also pinpointed marijuana's dangers.
It spells out very clearly that marijuana can be toxic and dangerous to children, and also it's dangerous to the developing adolescent brain.
There's also evidence linking marijuana to a higher risk of developing schizophrenia and other psychoses, as well as depression. The findings come as the number of states voting to legalize recreational marijuana use doubled in 2016, from 4 to 8. Along with the District of Columbia, 28 states and the district have legalized it for various medical purposes.
A recent nationwide survey reported more than 22 million Americans aged 12 and over have used marijuana in the past 30 days. 10% of that use was for medical purposes, the rest either recreational or a combination of recreational and medicinal.
Still ahead, if you're left-handed, if you're a left-handed cat person. Even more precise. Who isn't shy about swearing. It gets even more precise. This new study has great news for you.
Oh, I love it. I cannot wait. Plus, when you think of rap stars, you probably don't think of Michigan's Secretary of State, and you probably still won't after we show you the new commercial her office just put out.
New training for local police officers that can help keep all of us safe. Post-traumatic stress disorder training. The story is next.
Every Wall Street new at 6.
We first told you about a letter carrier here in Macomb Township who was accused of dumping mail down a porta potty. Now that letter carrier has been charged. In this case, we're finding is huge.
You know, he was gainfully employed with a good job, and you're just tossing it all away.
How many families impacted? How many gift cards and checks were stolen? We've got the answer coming up on Local 4.
He was hit by a stray bullet just simply buying a taco. After his murder now, his family wants justice. That story coming up.
All right, Jason, police never know what they might run into when they pull someone over, and for some drivers, the stress of a traffic stop can be overwhelming.
Tonight, defender Kevin Dietz takes a look at how special training is helping defuse potentially explosive situations. Kevin?
Yeah, it's never been harder to be a police officer. As part of our series we call True Blue, we're highlighting different police officers and different programs that help make the community safer. Tonight we take a look at a new training program for post-traumatic stress disorder. Take a look. Kirk Shahan is a war hero, honored with medals for saving lives during tours in Iraq and Kuwait. Back home, he suffers from PTSD.
My heart is racing. My throat's way up here. I can't breathe. I start panicking.
When it happens at home, his wife Melissa calmly talks him through it.
You just try to be there for him for when he does have a flashback, to try to help him come back to life, you know. Hey, you're safe, you're home.
When he suffered a flashback during a police stop in Metro Detroit, the situation escalated quickly.
Drop your keys, man. Come on, shoot me.
Get your hands up now.
Since then, Shahan has been pushing for more training for first responders, and now more police officers are taking advantage of classes.
PTSD, you don't feel safe.
Siwan Green is a former Marine and expert on PTSD. He's in Metro Detroit training police from multiple agencies, explaining PTSD is real and something veterans, police officers, nurses, EMS workers, and many others suffer from.
We're really good at training people to go into harm's way. We're not good at all at training people to unpack it when they come back.
It's common for first responders to encounter someone suffering an episode, but without training, they may not recognize it. Classes like these reduce safety risks for police and those suffering from PTSD.
What he's dealing with, what he's struggling with, how it developed, how do you talk to him if he's in crisis.
Officers in attendance calling it some of the most important training they have ever received.
It kind of opened my eyes that after, the lesson plan that we went through, that it can happen to, us.
I think it should be in every academy class in every college, not just for police, but also for social workers, counselors, doctors, administrators. It's really important.
Sources tell me the state of Michigan has a lot of room for improvement when it comes to mandatory training for police officers, saying the time to learn is not on the streets in the heat of the moment, but in a classroom like the one we just featured. If you know of an exceptional police officer or program in your community, let us know and we'll profile it. You can contact us at clickondetroit.com. Just go to the Defenders page. Kevin Dietz, Defenders.
Yeah, it's fascinating. All right, Kevin. Well, Michigan Secretary of State is hoping to convince more people to hop online with this new commercial featuring what else? A talking kangaroo.
You don't have time to lose. Nobody here has time to lose.
Waiting around is such a snooze.
I'm rapping to the beat. Just bang, bang your keyboard to the boogiest of beats. With Print and Go, you gotta know, you can renew tabs anytime. It's Express.
Yep, that's Secretary of State Ruth Johnson rapping with a kangaroo. I never expected that. I don't.